He was a morbidly obese surgeon destined for an operating table and an early death. Now he's a rebel MD who is fabulously fit and fighting to make America healthy again. This is Stay Off My Operating Table with Dr. Philip Ovadia.
We're live. Hey, it's the Stay Off My Operating Table podcast with Dr. Philip Ovadia. I fix hearts at Twitters. I'm the talking hairdo, Jack Heald. And when I saw this guest's name show up on the calendar, I went, woohoo, we've got Ed Latimore today. Phil, I got to tell you, none of the people that we've ever talked to were people that I knew prior to meeting you, except for Ed Latimore. I actually bought something from Ed, I don't know, 3 years ago, probably. Welcome to the show, Ed Latimore.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Your name, I was looking at the Jack, and I'm like, Jack Heald. I've seen it. Some names
we actually, several years ago, we actually exchanged a couple of 3 emails. So, but
okay, that makes sense.
You have several orders of magnitude more Twitter followers than I do, so I'm not offended. So normally the folks we're talking to, Phil, are healthcare practitioners or somebody who's at least healthcare adjacent. Why do we have an ex-boxer on our show?
Great question, Jack. But really excited for this conversation and to have Ed on. I think we're going to discover through the course of this that Ed is certainly healthcare adjacent, but really comes at it from a very different angle, very different background. And I think his story around, just health, nutrition, and really, messaging is what I'm hoping we're able to educate the audience on today. So, in certain circles, I would say that Ed needs no introduction. As you said, he is very well known in the Twitter sphere and in the social media world. But, my audience may not be familiar with him as our circles only kind of peripherally cross, it would seem. But hopefully they will know him well after today. So as you said, Ed's background, very varied, professional boxer, media influencer, highly successful business person. And I'm looking forward to discovering how this all interacts with health, which it very much does. But before we get too much into it, Ed, why don't you fill in a little bit of the details and introduce yourself to our audience?
All right, I'm going to do the abridged version so I don't take up too much time, I hope. I'm Ed Latimore. I guess my claim to fame is that I was a boxer, had a highly successful amateur career and turned pro and had some decent success and as a professional. But one of the things I realized right around the transition from amateur to professional is that stuff would not last forever. And I needed to also make some changes in my personal life as well. Otherwise, I'd destroy myself. So in 2013, simultaneously, I turned professional, enlisted in the Army, and started sobriety. I've been sober now it'll be 9 years this December. And also in 2014, I took my first class in school and ultimately graduated with a degree in physics at the age of 33. So I've been writing ever since. I was writing during my career as a boxer. I continue to write now. I'm on them this close to signing a pretty major book deal, and I'll continue to write and learn and educate myself on all things life, including health and metabolism. That's actually been one of my most recent obsession. So this is an awesome bit of timing.
Well, finish the story that I stopped you from telling before we were recording, because I think that it sounded like it was going to be fun.
Oh no! Well, what I was saying is I took some blood work because I'm a big proponent of the earlier you get in front of something, the more you're able to influence it. If you take it a degree off 5 years out, you can drastically alter a thing. But if you leave it a degree modified or altered and you just let it go, you can't see anything. So I took a massive blood test and got really curious. And the thing I noticed was my fasting glucose was 92. My hemoglobin A1C was like 5.3. And I also had high cholesterol, but very low triglycerides. So all this, I'm like, this is crazy. This is a mess. So I just dug into everything I could to understand and learn how this was going about. And that led me to realize that my fasting insulin, as it kept creeping, or fasting glucose, before I even get to the insulin metric, my fasting glucose, as it continued to creep up and my hemoglobin A1C was creeping up, I was like, okay, I need to modify diet, because at this time also I was entertaining the idea if I could drop the weight naturally without having to go through a weight cut, I'd fight again, but at a later weight class. But I could not get my body to go below 230 or my waist circumference to go below 37, by the way. And I was like, what is going on? Everything I tried. I'm 6'1".
Oh boy, 6'1", 230. There's a lot of muscle there, isn't there?
Oh, quite a bit, you know. but I wanted to be
I'm 6'4", 205.
Oh goodness, man! I wish I was 6. You know what's nuts, man? My mom was 5'9", my dad was 6'3", and I got shortchanged. My sister's 5'11". I always tell her, I was like, if I was as tall as you are for a guy, that you are for a girl, I'd be about 6'4", you know, or 6'4", 6'5", and I just got shortchanged. But I went through all of that, and it led me to discover all types of things. Also, I really got tired of seeing the fitness bros on social media talk about how you can eat carbs and still lose weight, which is true, you can, but they need to. I felt they were being dishonest, almost intentionally, by not making the distinction between refined carbs and well, I guess the other type. I don't know what I know simple and complex. I don't know what the opposite of refined is when we talk about carbohydrates in this regard, when I use that adjective. But
I gotta press pause here real quick. Phil, I'm having so much fun because I feel like this is Ed and I we're on the same page here. I'm not
you know, and
trying to do this rapid translation of all the scientific stuff. Ed, most of the time our guests are like way over my head, and I got to turn to Phil and say, please translate into English for me. So anyway, go ahead.
I am incredibly simple here, because if it's simple, then it's easily transmittable and easy to digest. You can dig into the jargon and the specifics for your own entertainment, but if you want to transmit an idea and get it to stick, you need to be able to simplify that idea and get to the bare bones essence of it. But digging into all that, I realized, okay, little things I didn't think were making a difference. For example, I love popcorn, and popcorn is a relatively healthy carb, but I would always have it at like 10 p.m. before bed. I was like, okay, that's causing an issue. We got to drop that. Okay. Anytime intermittent fasting probably is one of the single biggest things that change my body's ability to release. First of all, anytime you fast, right, and your insulin goes below a certain point, you start to activate lipolysis, right, where the fat comes out and makes a huge difference, right? And then on top of that, so all of this is kicking. So finally my waist starts getting smaller, and then like I couldn't figure out. I Googled it. It's amazing. You think Google is this big reservoir of information, and it is. But some things they're still behind on. I couldn't figure out why my cholesterol, both HDL was very high, LDL relatively high, but my triglycerides were like way below normal. We're talking like 45, 50. And so I looked this up, and they're like, oh, you don't normally see that. It must be an abnormality. Turns out when I discover and dig deeper and discover Homo IR, and I plug the numbers into that, I'm just a really healthy MFer, right? I could probably stand to lower my LDL a little bit, but as I understand it, the big deal is when it becomes oxidized or glycated. You know, when I'm eating a bunch of sugar and stuff like that, then it becomes an issue. So as long as TLDR, I figured that I should probably just cut back the refined carbohydrates, and that has led me to eat a heavy meat diet. I'm not like carnivore, right? But I'm probably closer to, I don't know what you call it, probably closer to paleo, I guess. But more or less, a big fan of the meat. I actually stopped drinking protein shakes because I said, let me get my protein from a source that is more bioavailable and also comes with a bunch of other stuff that you lose when you process something. That completely, like, I love where my health is now, and now I can like see the difference in the numbers. And that's what I think is the most important thing, because you can look at a person and be like, boom, and all of a sudden you drop dead. It's one of my worst fears because I'm like overly healthy and I'm 37. So I'm like, I know people who, oh, I'm good, and then click, not so much. But then but I didn't want that to be me. And I also started doing a lot of research into some of what they consider the top causes of killers in America prior to COVID, 6 of 10, after 7 of 11 top. And all of them are either direct symptoms or results of metabolic syndrome, or what I would say derivatives of them. And I was like, okay, understanding that you can leapfrog years of health. Oh, and I got into understand that, makes you lose your hair. People don't know that. It's really metabolic syndrome it plays a role in it. Not a significant role.
Found
There's
that
other
out
things.
too late, unfortunately.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So lots of stuff, but that's how all that happened. I know I probably went down a bit of a
No.
Oh no, I love it.
I love it. Phil, would you please translate some of this stuff? Because Ed's still over my head a little bit.
I want to bring out that you're probably, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're the only former boxer with a physics degree who knows what lipolysis is in the world. But what's really most impressive to me is you figured it out, and you just explained what honestly 90% of my colleagues who deal with heart disease every day haven't been able to figure out and see, when it comes to the real causes of heart disease.
It's nuts to me because the data is there. Now, I am not a doctor, maybe not obviously, but I'm not a doctor, and I haven't gone to medical school, so I don't understand. I don't claim to know kind of what the rigors are of the profession or the preparation is like to do it. What I can confidently say though is that I think there's something wrong if I can find this information. Like if I understand the reason why cholesterol tends to be higher in people who have heart attacks, well, because the cholesterol is showing up. What's the analogy? You don't blame the firemen for being there when the building's burned down. You would go, oh, they're here because there was a fire and they were trying to put it out. That's kind of the analogy I remember learning. And I don't remember if I got that from your book or someone else's podcast about why cholesterol is high. And to see that and go, that's amazing. Why? And to see all the other research that confirms this. And then, and don't get me started on what I consider one of the greatest lies that has been told to certainly the American people, and then it's propagated around the world, is how saturated fat is bad for you. And that by itself actually wouldn't be so bad. What is bad is how we crafted a food pyramid where the majority of it gives you things that contribute to heart disease and all types of metabolic syndrome. So I think what just happened, I mean, part of my upbringing, part of how I've always lived is I don't expect anyone to save me. And so I needed to go dig and understand this myself. And I'm fortunate, that I'm not an idiot, and I was born when I was born, so I have access to the internet, and so I can look this stuff up and learn it. And then I don't have to wait for go ask my doctor to write a prescription. I pay the money to get my own blood work done, look at it, and if something's wrong, I take it to him and go, hey, what's up with this? And even still, we've had some friction. I'm probably going to change doctors, but that's what you have to be in this world, is you have to take responsibility for your own health and life. No one else is going to do it for you.
Yeah, that's a big part of, what I try to get people to understand is that, health is your responsibility, and hopefully your doctor will help with that. At a minimum these days, I say, hopefully your doctor isn't actively interfering with that, which unfortunately is all too often true. But ultimately, my role as your doctor is not to make you healthy. My role is to help you make yourself healthy.
Absolutely.
That's what people need to understand.
And what's amazing to me is not just the doctors, because because I genuinely believe they're acting in their best interest. I think most people are, in fact. What bugs me is how much traction certain ideas get and how powerfully they stick around in society, even to the point where one calls into question evidence presented, independent studies done that go, that's a really bad idea. There's still people that prefer margarine and live by the food pyramid, and they don't understand why fat-free anything is generally worse for you, even if they don't put something in it to make it palatable. Just removing the fat from something like cheese or milk, that's kind of what the point is. Like, those are good calories, and so if you take those out, right, but how do we get here? How do we get these ideas in our head? So it's a big lesson of whether you've got to study and you got to understand that, and then maybe you can get through, but probably not.
Yeah, and that really, brings up, my journey was seeing the fallacy in that, theory, that hypothesis first, and, the messaging that went into getting that to hold, and looking back, seeing how that was ingrained in me, how I was programmed, to believe this stuff. And ultimately, I was able to, find that information for myself, by myself, outside of the, medical education system, and ultimately come to these conclusions. And then seeing how that same kind of messaging, is in everything, whether you're looking at, our financial system, our education system, all of it.
Oh, it's wild, man.
Narrative. You and other guys that I've learned from, who come at it from a different approach, and then, come to discover how this affects our nutritional messaging. That's what's really been fascinating to me.
I think once you recognize one, and it doesn't have to be, you don't need more than one. You just need one. And the more of it, the more your life, this one lie with affects, the more powerful you become when you see the truth behind it. And a lot of us end up on this kind of independent health path or independent money path. A lot of guys anyhow, certainly in my age range, end up on this because they learned the truth about dating and what girls really are interested in, as opposed to what society tells them. And it's a big deal, because that's like the most important thing a human wants to do, is reproduce. And if you've been misleading them on the best strategies to do that, and you're like, oh, that's why I've been failing, but they said do this, and they said, okay, no, here's what you really should do. It works. And now you got a seed in your mind, and it doesn't matter where that seed comes from. That's just, I think, the most popular way for a lot of guys to end up there, whether it's through health or whether it's through finances, or even something as seemingly innocuous as, well, no, not innocuous, as media. You question one thing, you go, oh, if they can do it here, I don't know where else they can do it, but here's what I do know: I'm not getting results. At the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Do you get results with what you do? That's what bugged me, is that every guy I worked with, they told me they said do one thing to drop body fat. And because I had already, when I was a fighter, one of the things that I did before I went pro, I actually had 2 cage fights. Now I'm already a small heavyweight, but I'm an even smaller MMA heavyweight, because even though they have a weight ceiling, which boxing doesn't, the heavyweight division in MMA, the heaviest you can be is 265. In boxing, there's no limit. There's a ground element, and that completely changes the game. All right. So what I did when I fought both of those fights is I cut down to light heavy. Yeah. It's either heavy or light heavy. I can't remember what it's called. The division that has the weight maximum of 205. And both times I did it in 6 weeks, and I did it incredibly with all of my strength and all of my health intact. I didn't do it by cutting calories. I did it by cutting carbohydrates. And I only found out later that this is like keto. But I know it worked because I maintained all my strength. My endurance actually went up, and I just recently learned why that happened after the initial decline. And I got ripped. And I said, okay.
We had an exercise physiologist previous episode who really knows her stuff, but she's also an expert in the field. I'd like to hear from a non-expert, from just a guy, a layman. Why does cutting the carbs, why were you able to drop the weight, keep your strength, keep your endurance? What, from your understanding, why did that?
All right. I give you my understanding, kind of the street knowledge, street knowledge of this, right? Okay, so the way I always understood this is that, and I'm going to keep it simple because I do know a little bit more now than I used to know. I always explain it to people: you have 2 gas tanks. One gas tank is full of 87 or 89, right? That's what it is. 89. One gas tank full of 89, the other's full of 93. All right, which means the 93 is burns better. It's gonna, but that 87, that's that cheap fuel. You can easily get it done, but you got 2 of those tanks, and what your body prefers to use, unless you train it a certain way, what your body prefers to use is that cheap gas, because that cheap gas, it comes in, it's easy to break up, it's easy to combust. And it is it's easily to replenish. Your tank, right? To continue with the analogy, your tank for holding the cheap gas is orders of magnitude smaller, but you got the money to just keep popping it in, and it's easier to use. Okay, but that other tank, the problem with that tank is you got to carry that around with you. You can't do nothing with it. Not only can you do nothing with it, because it's so expensive and it takes so much energy to break apart, your body ain't going to touch it. It's going to consider it a reserve until what? Until that first tank is empty. And then it's going to break into that next one. And in that analogy, the cheap gas was glucose, and the expensive gas were lipids, right? And as I remember, right, it's like what the energy in a fat molecule in a fat particle is like twice as high as over twice as high as this is the equivalent size glucose particle. So like getting rid of if I stop bringing in glucose, my body still prefers to burn it, so it's going to burn up all the reserves, and when it's done, it's going to be like, we can make a little bit of this, but now it is energy intensive, much more so than it is to just burn the other stuff. That's like as simple as I can get it.
I love that analogy.
The only thing that I would refine, I think, where this gets a little bit misunderstood is it's not that your body prefers to burn glucose. It's that your body knows that glucose is toxic and it needs to get rid of it. So our bodies prefer to burn fat. And if we just, don't shove a whole bunch of the cheap gas in, our body's going to be perfectly happy to be running on the high test stuff. Whenever you put the cheap stuff in, your body says, I got to get rid of this cheap stuff first, because this cheap stuff is going to, ruin my engine. And so we got to get rid of it as quickly as possible.
It is.
And that's what it really comes down to. And that gets misinterpreted. You know, people think that because we burn glucose first, that must be our preference. But the reason we burn glucose first is because glucose is toxic and we need to get rid of it.
No kidding. So I'm reading this book right now. My phone, John, my phone, maybe. He talks about it's this endurance training method, and his whole thesis is run slow to run faster. And by doing that, you train your aerobic system to prefer to burn fat over sugar.
Yeah.
And
Maffetone.
Maffetone. Right? I knew it was M something. And I'm just reading this and I'm like, no kidding. And once I made the connection between the nutrition stuff he talks about and why your heart rate stays low if you're burning fat, I said, wow, this is one of the, like, it's one of those moments where you go, okay, you know, you have not so much been lied to as you have been misled.
Misinformed.
Misinformed is better.
Yeah. I love that. Reminds me of that line from Casablanca where Louis and Rick are talking, and Louis says, "Why'd you come?" Or I don't know if it was Louis or the Nazi. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Why'd you come to Casablanca? Oh, for my health. I came for the waters. Right. Louis says, "For the waters, Casablanca's in a desert." And Rick's response is, "I was misinformed."
No, but it's so interesting to, like, once you start looking at that, and sugar is this, man. People are really invested, I've learned, in their positions. If changing those positions would cost them comfort. And you see this you see this no better in any other place but the diet industry, and it really started to bug me because I already had my experience cutting weight, right, and getting shredded and leaning down and seeing how well it worked. So I wasn't coming at when I seen a lot of the fitness guys selling this and making it a kind of a marketing thing. Oh, you know, eat these carbs, do what you can, you do what you want. My first thought, I said, either you're lying or you're leaving out that you're cutting out, because look, nobody's got problems. No one's overeating carrots. Like, those aren't the carbs they're talking about. Right. You know, so yeah, are you doing that? And I would have these discussions, and a lot of them are friends, so I'm like, you know, keep it civil, but I'm just like, I can't buy this because I know better from experience. You know, and so I just went and looked and kept digging, kept understanding. And that just opened up a whole well of information about things. I wasn't like looking to understand my cholesterol, but lo and behold, I understand my cholesterol to the point where I won't get a standard test anymore. I go get an NMR or NMR test now. And interpret. Okay, yeah, so I actually don't know what that acronym stands for, but I can tell you what the test means. So apparently it's not just LDL, low density lipoparticles, and high density lipoparticles. It is more about, like, what else? What did they break it down into 3 different? Very small, and like not so small. And so, how many of those do you have? That makes a difference because all particles aren't created equal, or rather all LDLs aren't created equal. Some of them are dangerous and some of them aren't, because some are too big to pass through your artery.
Yeah, the lining of the artery.
The lining of the artery, yeah. And so most of them aren't a problem, but if you have too many of the little ones that can, you might have a problem.
Once again, Ed, you just surpassed about 90% of the physicians I interact with on a daily basis who don't understand exactly that. And
this is something that I struggle with because and lately through a series of activities, I'm getting a lot more confident in this because on the one hand, I understand that to do something that you've never done before you should probably listen to people that have done it and have their experience. And so I'm very big on listening to the experts in the area where they are purported to be experts, right? On the other hand, I cannot ignore my reality. I can't do it. So if I see something incongruent with what they say, or I hear stories, I ask why, and I look, and then I discover perhaps. And one of the things that is really lended this movement, we'll call it, credence, is that it's not regular dudes like me creating content around this. It's other doctors like you who have said, this is not quite right. You know, that really helps, because if it was just a guy like me, and I'm a smart guy, but I don't have an MD, you know, and so the first thing they're going to attack is my lack of that, and rightfully so, by the way. I think they should. But when I'm looking at who's another big guy in the space, I think Paul Anderson, maybe his name, Paul
Saladino.
Some Australian dude. That's what I know.
Australian guy.
We've
there
got
are
a
a
lot
couple.
of them.
Yeah, you know,
We've got a lot of them on the show.
But there are a lot of guys, and you just go, all right. We're not just talking about a bunch of bro scientists. We're talking about real dudes with real credentials, who are putting their licenses and their life work on the line, saying this effectively. Like if they're wrong, then it's a malpractice thing.
Yeah. So what advice would you have for, you know, the people out there in the audience, and, you know, they come across me and the other physicians like me who are saying, you know, these types of things about cholesterol, and, you know, you can eat meat and you don't have to worry about saturated fat. And then, you know, there are other guys with MDs after their name who say, you know, meat is the worst thing you can eat, and, you know, you need to be vegan, and you know, it's all about your LDL cholesterol. You need to keep that as low as possible. So how does, you know, the common guy start to figure out, you know, which one of these experts they should listen to? Because that's really one of the biggest problems I see these days. You know, if you get on and you Google how do I prevent heart disease? You know, you're going to see a whole lot of stuff from the American Heart Association, and they're going to tell you need a low-fat diet. And hopefully you're going to come across, you know, me or, you know, one of the other guys out there talking a similar message. And, you know, how do you start to figure that out?
I'll answer that question, but let me tell you, man, about the American Heart Association. Once again, your heart breaks when you learn these things, but you learn them and you go, well, that's how it is. When I learned about the collaboration between the American Heart Association and the people pushing seed oils, I was like, yo, that's wild, man. Like they pretty much, and I don't remember the story exactly, but I have the general details that are imprinted, which is seed oils were coming up. You know, your polyunsaturated fats, your cottonseed oil, saffron, sunflower oil, all those things, vegetable oil. And they said, well, we need to sell more of this. What can we do? And American Heart Association was like, oh, we'll tell people that this is good for your heart health. Never mind the fact that it wasn't until we started consuming that stuff. There were no recorded heart attacks until the 1900s after we started consuming that stuff. And then that goes up as our consumption of polyunsaturated fatty acids increases. But that's a side note. That really, I said, I can't trust anything I see from anything even remotely that looks like a government agency where they lobby and get money. But after that, what can the average guy do? The first thing, you have to have your health be number one priority, because if you don't have that, you won't do what it takes, because this is not information. This is going to be handed to you. That I figured out. Because unless you get lucky and you end up with a doctor that is like on this side of the fence, you're not going to get the information. You're going to be given the other stuff. And because you don't take your health seriously enough to educate yourself on it, you won't do more than what they give you. So that's the first thing is you have to look at your health as more important than anything. Like, because and it is like, I don't care what you do for a living. If you get sick, you have a heart attack, you that's it. You're gonna be down. You have a stroke, be down, right? You get diabetes, goodbye to cookies. You know, that's the most important thing. And if you have kids, man, it goes double, right? You want to have a long, healthy life and not be a burden. So you take your health important. You make it the most important thing. And then now you've got the motivation to do real research. You've got the motivation to ask questions when things don't make sense. And that's important. You've got the motivation to question everything. Because look, most people aren't going to be as obsessed with me off the jump, but a lot of guys are going to be offered. I'm coming into my not quite in my 40s yet, but I'm 37. What starts to happen around now? Okay, so they're going to probably try and go, oh, you might need some statins, right? That's what my doctor would prescribe if we looked at my cholesterol. Okay. The TRT, that's what the bro scientists are doing, right? So it's not just the mainstream people getting it wrong. Everyone's kind of missing up because, I noticed my testosterone was declining and I actually entertained TRT and I said, wait a second, let me just understand this. Everything else I can understand. So I wouldn't understood it and made some changes. And my last reading, it was back into the 800s. And I'm like, okay, so now we're rocking and rolling, right? But that's because I wasn't afraid to question on either side. And not whether question the doctor on that statin stuff or question the bro scientists are like, yo, we just get on TRT. Every guy needs it. I'm like, right? There's got to be a different way, better way. So that's the second thing. Don't be afraid to question stuff. And you shouldn't be, but if you're following number one, making your health the number one priority. And then number three is just kind of the natural outcome of questioning everything and making something a priority is once you recognize something and you feel even remotely solid, you got to pull the trigger. You have to track things yourself. You have to be able to go, okay, but because look, man, we live in a great era. I can get almost anything. Yeah, not even almost. I'm pretty sure there's some shady ass doctor that'll just write me a prescription. If I really needed some pain pills or something, and this is awful, but like, yeah, no, there's pain clinics in Florida. They'll hook me up, whatever, right? But you don't want to use it for nefarious purposes. You want to use it to acquire things and make a check your own blood work so you can see how it goes. Because once you take that step and you see changes, there ain't shit anybody can tell you because you'll see the results yourself. That's what ultimately led me to question these guys that were saying, oh, you can just keep eating whatever you can have your fine carbs and pizzas and be all good. And I'm like, nah, bro, I know this because I've done this to myself and seen it work, and I know what doesn't work. So I don't know what you're giving. Maybe it's a marketing stick to pull them on the front end and do a switch around when they get in. But either way, I understand something's off here. And I know that because step three, I'd done it to myself. Now, I didn't get to step three in that particular example by following step 1 and 2. I had to make weight, but I got there. But once you do it, you're good. So those are the three things I think anyone needs. They need to put health number one. They got to question everything. And then when they get some answers that looks like they'll work, they got to test them. You can't be afraid. Look, your body, very few things are going to kill you that you can get to make your health better. Like it's very hard. Yeah. I'm trying to think of something.
That's a really good way to say it.
Yeah.
There are very few things that could make your health better that if you try it are going to kill you.
Yeah. So you got to be willing to have a little balls out here, man. Like I'm trying to think of an example. Right, man. So just out of curiosity, I was like, let me try this phentermine. Now, phentermine, I tried it because I thought about the cognitive benefits. Very close to meth, not meth, but very close to it chemically. It just so happens that its original use is for diet. So let me try it and see where we go.
Oh, is that part of what fen was, Phil?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And also, right, what else did I discover? I discovered for you in this whole testosterone argument, right? I discovered that what is it? HCG does the same thing as testosterone without shrinking your gonads. In fact, we're pretty sure that's the reason why we're expecting a baby. I was on HCG. But that's the thing, you're not afraid. I'm not afraid to test. So you got to have a little bit of a maverick spirit because at the same time, if you're taking number one well, before you get to number three, you're going to do your research. A lot of it. Like, I'm not just popping pills randomly, willy-nilly. No. Well, whole research articles that I'm probably going to publish on my website that I wrote for myself so I could understand it and I could cite these things. And yeah.
There's something that I've never said this out loud, but I know some of the bro science guys, and I remember very clearly the morning in my mid-30s. I was rail thin my whole life, and I ate like a garbage dumpster. I could eat anything, and I did. And I ate mass quantities of it, and I never put on an ounce. And I remember a morning when I was 33 or 34, and I felt this little roll around my middle, and I went, where's that? What is that all about? And there's an awful lot of bro science guys who were late 20s, early 30s. And they work out like crazy. They really do a good, they've made their bodies a priority in terms of muscle and body fat percentage. But I got to tell you, when I was 25, 7, 29, 31, had I been working out the way those guys worked out, and I didn't, I'd have been ripped, I'd have been cut, and I was eaten like a dumpster. And there's something that happens to guys in their mid-30s. So my new rule is I don't listen to bro science from anybody under 35. They hadn't hit that wall yet. But those guys who were 45 and 50 and had 10 or 15 or sometimes a lifetime of years behind them of not taking care of themselves and being in awful shape and then figured it out, those are the dudes I listen to. Like, I don't know, Philadelphia.
Generally speaking, you're going to do better that way anyway, because look, well, when you're young, you can get away with a lot of BS. When you're old, not so much.
Your 40-year-old body is responsible for cashing the checks your 20-year-old body was writing.
Man, that's brilliant, and it's the truth. Look, I'll tell you what. One of the things that I pride myself on, I just take a lot of pride in this, is people do not, and I don't think I look particularly young, but they don't put me at 37 ever, and that's cool. But what that means is I don't drink. I sleep well when I can. I know that's about to go out the window for a few months. I eat well. You do very little things that are within your control. What I've learned is that it's very easy to get a person to do something new. I can tell you, go to the gym and work out, and you can get somebody. You can really take somebody and get them in there 4 or 5 days a week. We just say, all you gotta do is lift and run, bro. That's it. But if I tell you to stop eating after 8 p.m. and limit that cake, like cut that cake out, and that no more bagels, make eggs in the morning and bacon. Oh man, now you're running into issues. It's hard because look, I don't think that's got anything to do with the addictive nature of sugar or anything. I think it's like anything you make part of you. If you do it long enough, it becomes a habit. And now you have to exert real energy to change it. And this makes thinking of it from a physics standpoint. If you look at habits as having inertia, it is hard to start a new habit to move something that is rolling, right? An object that rests, stays at rest. But people don't realize the second part of that is that an object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon by another force, and it won't change its direction unless that force is greater in the opposite direction you wish to change it along. So if you look at a habit like that, right? Look, if you eating BS, I can get you to eat less of it, but to get you to start to prefer a steak and to cook it and to have that steak over your instant mac and cheese, if that's all you've been crunching for, you'll find every reason to not do it. It's too expensive. It takes too long. I don't like the taste of meat. The food pyramid said it's bad for me. Like come up with anything to keep that habit in motion.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear your perspective on the interplay, with the sobriety aspect of this, because, we've actually had a couple of guests on who have talked about, there is a sugar addiction component to it. There is interaction between your metabolic health and your mental health. And I'd love to get your perspective as someone who has gone through that journey. It always amazes me, and I haven't really been to AA meetings, but every time you see something about an AA meeting, there's a table of donuts there, and everyone's drinking their soda.
Ah, man. All right. So okay, the AA meetings I've gone to has always been coffee. So there's that. But as far as the interplay of that, right? So you got to understand something. Once an addict, always an addict. It's just, what do you become addicted to? So some crackheads turn into crazy workout people. Others start a pillow company, okay? I said that to say, you were replacing habits. What is it? It's 5:52. Now, this doesn't have caffeine in it, but there's coffee in this mug. And consuming 5-6 cups of coffee a day, decaf, by the way, because I had to switch to decaf if I was going to live like that. That's a much better habit than 5-6 drinks a day. All right. So what I'm doing with that is from a from a neurological perspective, I guess I'm replacing the grooves that were carved out my brain from the habit of the mechanical habit. How this interplays with changing diet and everything. Well, first, just talk about the benefits of not drinking. As I understand it, and I could be wrong here, correct me, your body can't do anything with alcohol calories, and it knows that. So the first thing it does when you take an alcohol, all of the burning goes to the back. We go to the back of the line, and then your body focuses on metabolizing and excreting the alcohol, right? So that's some lost metabolism. And then those produce, I can't remember what the words are, but I know they're bad. The byproduct of that metabolism. And you got to deal with that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes with that. And your body doesn't like it. And so not drinking alcohol only benefits you. And that's alcohol. We're not talking about the anti-testosterone effects of hops, right? Hops are fairly estrogenic, if I remember right. So if you're a beer guy, now you got to deal with that. So you got to deal with already the alcohol is going to lower your testosterone in general. And then you got to deal with on top of it something that is patently anti-testosterone or pro-estrogenic, however you want to look at that. So I don't think, look, if you drink, whatever, right? But just know that you're paying a cost for that. And you can be disciplined with it all you want, but at the end of the day, alcohol is a known carcinogen. That's what I always bring up. So you can decide how much you want to play that game, how much you want to spend that revolver and help. Why it's a carcinogen? Likely due to how it affects your metabolism. Same with and inflammation, same with smoking. So there's that. But once you stop, you get a lot of clarity. For me, I got a lot of clarity. It's been very easy because once you do one hard thing that requires you to eliminate on the old way, replaced with a new way that is constructive. It is much easier to do that with other stuff. Like because now you know, right? And it's not the same thing, but it's the same way of doing the thing.
Yeah,
And you
it's
can
the same
easily
shape of it's the same
yeah,
trajectory, the same arc.
same degree, different type kind of deal, right? And it's just been beautiful because I understand, for example, that I had to stop drinking to make such changes that were important because I took my life seriously, more seriously. That's what made me stop. So once I take my health more seriously, I'm like, okay. You know what I used to do? For example, when I was burning upwards of freaking 6,000 calories a day when I fought, and I couldn't keep weight on. I mean, I had a bottom limit, but it was not the limit we wanted me to fight at. So I would, on the way home from practice, I used to buy a box of Ritz crackers, the 4 rolls, and I eat the whole thing, get home, and then have dinner.
Holy smokes!
Can't do that anymore. And I love Ritz crackers. Love them. They're delicious. I ain't had a Ritz cracker. Every now and then is a treat on a road trip. I'll get the little baggies, but the big boxes, no way. Never in the house. Could never touch it because I know what to do to beat. And I won't even say beat an addiction. I'll say to deal with a problem that is in the way between me being my best version and me being who I am now. So I keep that stuff out. I want
to ask you a question and take the conversation a slightly different direction. It's really cool to have a non-medical professional on talking this way. And what I'm hearing is a guy who's not in the healthcare industry who recognized he had to do something about his health and made some changes, but there's also a commonality with other things in your life. You recognize, I got to make a change here and do. I got to make a change here and do. So my question is, what's the common factor that allowed Ed Latimore to recognize a problem and recognize that you had to make a change, and then most importantly, be able to follow through?
You want to know the truth, man? And
yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah, because I struggle with how I'm gonna impart this ability to my son. I have some ideas. But growing up, I never got to entertain bullshit. I couldn't do it. And it's not like my parents were strict, well, my mom, whatever. No, it's just that there was no, when you're poor, you don't get a chance to believe in Santa. Why? Because ain't nobody bringing you gifts anyway. Right? Kind of deal. So you realize very quickly, either Santa don't like your black ass or he ain't real. It's one or the other, So with that said, you see a lot, though you grow up the way I grew up, and what that did for me, one aspect of my personality, and I think it does this to every person who grows up like me. It's just there's other aspects that take them a different way. But the central aspect is you understand viscerally. No one has to teach it to you. You don't have to go to a seminar, write a book, follow somebody on Twitter, whatever. You understand viscerally that no one's coming to help you with anything, and your entire existence, for better or worse, is up to you. I was probably the only kid that went to his own open house because I knew that my mom wasn't gonna go, right? But I needed that information. I needed to know where I was at. Okay. I understood that I was the only dude. I went to a city school. They weren't that serious about football, but when I played, I was like, wow, I got some ability. So I was the only guy in there making sure I 5:30 in the morning, studying tapes and trying to learn more. Same with boxing now. I have when I fought, I took complete responsibility for my fighting career. And I'm happy I did it because there are things that would have turned out differently if I hadn't. And when you do that, when you take full control, when you recognize, okay, no one's going to fix this, and not only is no one going to fix it, but if I don't fix it when it goes wrong, no one's going to be there to explain why I went wrong. It's just going to be me, right? So and I got stories about that with sobriety. I never would let myself believe that someone was coming to help me, coming to save me. It's even how I do things now. Even when there is somebody in the background that might actually be looking out, nah, man, I understand how to grow my own platform and reach out and get people to find me and things like that. I'm talking to a publisher now, one of the big 5 publishers, which is very cool. And my agent, well, he's not my agent yet, but he's probably going to be my agent. He said, it's really impressive how you managed to carve out this space out of nothing, really. And I'm like, well, who's going to carve it out for me?
Who's going to?
I got to write these articles. If I want this life, like my life looks remarkably like the life I imagined 10, 15 years ago, where I have control of my time. I'm not starving. I got an excellent shit, sometimes better than I feel like I deserve is the wrong word, but I really lucked out with the woman I'm with, and it's a good time. But it all started because you got to take control. No one's gonna give you a thing. Not only will they not give you anything, if you don't have an agenda for your own life, they're gonna put you as part of their agenda. And the way things go, it's almost never gonna be for your benefit. It's gonna be to theirs.
Yep.
And
tell me what you think of this. This has come to me. Sorry, Phil, but this is the layman's show today.
No, I'm still here.
I mean, that was very, what Ed just said applies 100% to your health. If you don't have your agenda, if you're not managing it, you're going to get what they give you. And we've said it many times on this show, what they give you is not good. Most of us are not healthy. And that's what you get if you just take what's given to you.
One of the things that I've realized in the year and a half that Phil and I have been doing this show, and I thought I knew a good bit about the realities of healthcare, but this has really opened my eyes. This idea that you are responsible for you, nobody's coming to take care of you, and if you don't take responsibility for your own wellness, somebody else has made you part of their agenda. If you don't have your own agenda, somebody's made you part of their own agenda. Following up on your thought there, I realized somewhere here along the last year that by and large, the what's called the healthcare industry is the disease maintenance industry.
Absolutely.
And we are not patients to be healed, but crops to be tended.
You ever seen The Matrix? Remember that scene when they break Neo out? What do they break him out of? They actually use the word crops, like when they're describing all of them, and they pull out because we're just energy, we're just sustenance for the system until you break out of the system, and then once you're out of the system, you're looking at it and you go, wow, that is fucked up. That's how it looks to you when you see things after you break out the system and free your mind.
Free your mind. Wow. I got to tell you, Phil, once again, I see Ed Latimore and I think, yeah, he's got a big social media following, but why is he on this show? What are we going to do here? And, and again, this has just been so cool. I just loved it. I think that the things that Ed said coming from Ed carry more weight than if they'd have come from a healthcare provider, at least for people like me. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why just hearing a guy, I think it's just, a guy, it's, for me, it's like, oh yeah.
Well, I'll give you my theory why, because, I'm just like you, man. And when I say that, what I mean is I am not credentialed. I am not elite. I'm just a regular old dude who's trying to not die too early, right? And when I die, it'd be nice if I just passed out my sleep sometime around the 95 plus range, right?
Yep.
That would be ideal. And so that means, like, I don't have an agenda, man. I'm not trying to sell you no health. I'm not trying to take care of you. I can't be your patient. I don't want you to even really find my doctor, because then that's less time he's got for me. So it's a very, there's nothing hidden, and there's nothing I gain whether you listen to me or not. Now, I think you should listen to me, but I at the end of the day, you know, what's that old saying, man? What you eat don't make me shit, right? That's like how it goes.
Oh, that's good. Well, I would love to just keep going and going, but we try to keep this to about an hour.
Oh wow, an hour has passed, man. Yeah, those are the best conversations, man. You don't even know where the hell the time went.
Yeah. You know, because I'm the producer, it's my job to keep an eye on the clock. And these are the kinds of things where I really wish I wasn't doing that. Phil, any last words?
Just another great conversation. And I think bringing, this perspective to, the conversation we've been having now for, like you said, a year and a half or so on this show. But this will really, this just brings a unique perspective to it that I hope will connect with a lot of people.
I do too, because, if you look at every metric, and I just learned about the United States, and the United States is a great place to start because our culture is very exportable. It's amazing. You want to know how exportable our culture is? When we were living in Portugal, I was walking through Porto, not the main city, not Lisbon, Porto, and we were just walking through some back alleys, and there were some kids playing basketball, and there's a mural on the wall that's got Allen Iverson, not Michael Jordan, not Steph Curry, not Kobe Iverson. And he goes, I'm talking about practice, right? And I was like, wow, what a cool mural. And I took a picture of it. But our culture just gets exported, including our food, and with that, our diseases. And if we can get people to understand that you can do something about this, you can, cancer ain't got to be something that just strikes at random willy-nilly. Same with heart disease, stroke, all this stuff. You can do something about it. If you get people to at least feel like they're empowered, you can change something. One of the saddest things that really frustrating more than sad, my mom passed almost a year now. My mom passed about a year ago. And it was from complications related to COPD. All right. And COPD is something pulmonary, chronic something pulmonary disease, right? I don't remember what the O stands for.
Obstructive.
There we go. But that's the straw, okay? But what was everything else on the camel's back? 300 pounds. Smoking for over 40 years, drinking, no exercise, eating like garbage, just terrible eating habits. And I used to have these arguments. And I said to her, I was like, look, man, because every time I point out this is why she's back in the hospital, she go, no, it's because of the sarcoidosis, or it's because of the diabetes. I'm like, yeah, it might be because of the diabetes. I mean, look how you eat, man. You like 300 pounds. Like, what the fuck? But the connection was never made, whether she was willfully trying to ignore it or not. She had power to do something about that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So,
you have power to do something about it.
Yeah, instead of waiting for the doctor to be like, all right, here's some medicine, because that's all it was. She was like, I'm not going to listen to you. Listen to the doctor. I'm like, okay, right? And even the docs are like, yo, you might want to not smoke. You got an oxygen tank. You know that, right? Like, kind of deal. All right, I'll never forget that day, man. I went over to her house. She had fucking oxygen in her nose, smoking a cigarette. Do you understand how this works? Like, I had to give her a chemistry lesson on why oxygen and fire are a bad idea. And she was like, oh, was like, oh yeah, you
You
shouldn't
can
do
do
that.
one or the other, but let's not do them both at
Yeah.
the same time.
Never mind the implications on your health, right? You can't breathe well, so we're just talking about the safety of every other person in this apartment.
Oh, I'm glad
Yeah,
you can
no,
laugh.
that's exactly it. People need hope. They need to understand that they can fix this for themselves.
Absolutely. And you know, I would love to see if I can do it, you can do it too. But it's not like I was that jacked up because I was coming off boxing. But that's because I wouldn't let myself get jacked up, you know.
Well, I think the subtitle for today's show is "Ain't Nobody Coming to Save You, but You Can Save Yourself."
Ain't that the truth, man?
You've got the power. Ed, I appreciate it, man. This
Hey,
has been good. This has been fun.
I appreciate you guys having me on, man. When I made the date, I was just like, let's hope the baby's not here, and he's not.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
And best wishes on that one. Keep us informed. Of course, you'll probably keep the Twitterverse informed.
Man, so it's come up in different whenever an interview, but I have not made a declaration because it's not, you know, I'm not like a big star or anything, but I'm big enough to where I have had to do certain things and make certain decisions where I'm like, yeah, my privacy is a little more important.
Yeah.
So
well, nevertheless, you've got our emails. So put us on that list that says he was born.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, man. It'd be exciting.
All right. What's the best way for folks to connect with Ed Latimore?
So I own Ed Latimore everywhere, man. Anybody who comes with that who wants to use that iteration or version of Ed Latimore instead of Edward Latimore, they're out of luck. I'm Ed Latimore on Twitter. I'm Ed Latimore on Instagram. My website is edlatimore.com. My Facebook, Ed Latimore. LinkedIn, Ed Latimore. Somebody beat me to it on YouTube. I'm Ed Latty1. And
I'm Jack Heald 5. And there's not a 1, 2, 3, and 4, but there you go. So
I bet somebody's holding a hostage, man, and waiting for me to fork over some dough. Like, fuck y'all, man.
All right. Well, very good. We'll put that contact info in the show notes, and probably pick up a little more bigger audience there for you, Ed. Well, for Dr. Phil Ovadia, I'm Jack Heald. I want to encourage y'all to go to ifixhearts.com and take Dr. Ovadia's metabolic health quiz if you hadn't done so already. It's a real simple, fast, and easy way to just kind of get a measurement of where you're at and compare it to where you could be. Ain't nobody coming to fix you. We will talk to you next time. America is fat and sick and tired. 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy and at risk of a sudden heart attack. Are you one of them? Go to ifixhearts.co and take Dr. Ovadia's metabolic health quiz. Learn specific steps you can take to reclaim your health, reduce your risk of heart attack, and stay off Dr. Ovadia's operating table.